Well, one of the biggest culture shocks that I experienced was that AC or air conditioning isn't as strong as it is in the USA. We came here during weeks where it was almost consistently in the 90-degree range, so it was very hot outside. And in Italy, they do a lot of dining happens outside of the restaurant. You go into the restaurant, you pick out what you want, you pay for it, and then you eat at tables that the restaurant owns outside of the restaurant.
So the biggest thing for us that we didn't think would be a problem, but actually was sit-down restaurants. So it's different here than it is in the US because we get in and we get out. When you sit down at a restaurant in Italy, it's more of you enjoy each other's company, you spend as much time as you want at the restaurant, you enjoy the food. They could sit there for 2 hours at a time, but meanwhile in the US, we eat our food and we expect to check right away. So if you have somewhere to go, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to plan accordingly when you sit down, especially if you order a glass of wine. They expect you to finish it before they hand you that check. Splitting the check was definitely hard for us as well. For college students, we first went out and we had a $300 check. And for a college student, that's very hard to front. It's very hard to get multiple people on the same payment plan. If you don't have Venmo or if you don't have Cash App, that's very hard. But we did eventually work it out, but it's not something you can expect everywhere.
I think the biggest advice I would give to a student is do your research before going to another country, period. People live differently than we do in America, and especially going into their country, you want to learn more about their culture and how they do their things, and even just brushing up on basic Italian, communication skills, very important. You need to know how to order something. That's something that we've struggled with a lot. That's something that I really didn't do coming into this trip, is I really didn't know any Italian. I barely even knew how to order something, and that was something that I struggled with. So just doing your basic research as to transport places, how to order something, how to communicate, I think is going to be my biggest advice.
So for being here about 2 weeks, I've learned a couple of things that I've adjusted to. One of them being, funny enough, water. Water is not cheap as it is in America. So if you're going out to dinner or going out to pretty much any meal, it's going to be a cost. So that's something to factor in when I'm coming here. So in America, if you go out to dinner, you can go and get water for free, but they'll give you a glass of water here that's for the table and you have to pay for that. But there is stores like corner stores or little convenience stores that have water that's pretty cheap. But that's the one thing that I feel like I've spent so much money on here, is that I don't have a reusable water, but I am just buying a bunch of bottles of water. The one thing that's good is there are fountains here that seem to be attainable, but they're kind of hit or miss, or if they work or not.
I think one of the great experiences of the trip was riding on the high-speed train to Florence. Going at speeds of upwards of 150 miles an hour, pretty easily is not something that we have in a lot of parts of America. But in Italy, they have a very robust high-speed rail network that crosses the country, and we experienced it, flying through the countryside at 150 miles an hour, and actually shortening a trip that by car takes about an hour and a half down to about 35 minutes. Our trip to Florence took.
Safety-wise, I feel pretty safe. I definitely think there was a huge difference going in between Bologna and Florence. We stayed in Florence for 3 days. We just did a little quick trip to Florence to explore that. And that was huge. It was a huge difference safety-wise. It was a lot busier, a lot more tourists there, a lot more you were scared of getting pickpocketed. But overall, walking late at night, I had no problem with. Even staying in the hostels, I didn't have any problem with any safety concerns between other people. There was people at our hostel that were staying from so many different countries that, I didn't even feel unsafe in the slightest.
So in Florence, you have the trams and you have buses, which you can either get tickets at ticket machines on the platforms, or using an app on your phone. Whereas in Bologna, they have a system where you can get tickets on the bus, you can get tickets at ticket machines, but you can also just use your contactless card to validate, and it will charge everything at the end. So I think that those systems are very good. Those are things that, thinking of some of the ways that you get tickets in Philadelphia, if you're riding a SEPTA bus, you have to pay the driver. That doesn't really happen in Italy. It's more of an honor-based system, and you have to validate your tickets or use your contactless card in the city of Bologna, which I think is an excellent method of paying for your public transport to get around the city, which really shortens the distances you have to go places because it takes you right into the center of the city. And once you start to learn the routes and the schedules and when buses start running and when buses stop running, it's a really great system to use and something to definitely use to your advantage when you're in Italy.
Beautiful. So one of the most interesting things that I've learned about their culture here is about the riposo, which is basically their resting period during the day. So basically what that means is when stores are open in the morning, they close for a certain amount of time in the middle of the day to go home with their families and enjoy a nice lunch and have some wine. And they kind of just come together and they spend time with each other. And then we also noticed that there are some places that stay true to that time of rest and close down their shop or restaurant during that time. And then there's others that may be more open to tourists that are open for longer periods of time throughout the night. So I just thought it was pretty interesting because we don't really have that in America, and it just kind of shows you how tightly knit they are with their family and their loved ones here, which I think would be cool if we had in America, but maybe we can just start doing that.
So the gem that we found wasn't really a find. It was more of just like a touristy area. It was called Piazzale Michelangelo, and it was an overlook of the entire city of Florence. Most people, they go to see the sunset, they sit on the steps, drink wine, eat food, listen to the music that people play outside. But what I thought was the coolest part about everything was seeing the different places that we visited that day. So it was cool to see the different, where everything was located, because when you're walking to it, it seems a lot farther away from each other. But looking over the city, you realize how close everything is, even to our hostel, which walking from our hostel to one of the locations felt like forever, but seeing it wasn't that far, and it was cool to see.
My favorite activity had to be Cinema Under the Stars during the film festival. That was incredible, especially the night that we watched the silent film Stella Dallas, and it had a live orchestra playing alongside. That was an experience I will never forget. Sitting in the chairs in Piazza Maggiore, underneath the stars, while this movie played on this huge screen, upscaled into 4K, with just an orchestra performing an original score. That was an incredible experience. It brought the whole city together. Everyone came together to watch these movies on the big screen in the piazza.
I think one of my favorite activities that I did on this entire trip was a pasta cooking class. That actually was through our hostel in Florence, the Yellow Square. They had their own little activities through that hostel that you could do, and one of them was a pasta cooking class. So it ran from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30, and it was €24, where you made 2 different types of pastas. So you made a pesto noodle type pasta, which honestly I had no idea we were even gonna do. And then you made a ravioli, which that was interesting, and man, was it a arm workout. And then you got some nice red wine to go along with it, but the chef was super nice. His name was Nigel. He made it super fun, super easy. Most of us were American and English speaking, so he was really accommodating towards that as well. It was really fun. He had some music on, taught us how to, actually make all of the pasta, told us everything, all the ingredients that were in the pasta sauces. So overall, I would give it a 10 out of 10 experience. It was my favorite thing here, and I think pasta making in Italy is a once in a lifetime experience for me.
So far, my favorite activity has been food on this trip. I love food in America, and here it's just even more of a indulgence of trying different things and just experiencing their type of food here. I definitely think one of my favorite meals I think definitely one of my favorite meals was definitely the bruschetta that I had at the one place that had sun-dried tomatoes and mozzarella cheese on a nice warmly toasted piece of bread. So yeah, I don't know why I left. So yeah.